Hello there, Doc Sanchez here, and this is the first episode of my new YouTube channel, chronicling my rise up and down the Age of Empires 2 ranked ladder. Now this is my first ever ranked game that I'm recording here. This happened a couple of days ago. I've since played a few more games, but still hovering around 1,000 ELO mark. So, to introduce this game, I'm playing in the blue as the Malians, and I am up against Rollo, who is playing as the Goths in the red. Rollo is about 900 ELO. We're playing on the Runestones map. Now, I'm one of those players. I've been playing Age of Empires for about 20 years now, through Age of Empires 1, Age of Empires 2, but never actually got round to playing on any online multiplayer games. So, after watching a lot of T90 videos, a lot of Spirit of the Law and the Viper, I finally decided to try my hand a few days ago, and here we are. So with this series, we're going to be following my ranked ladder journeys. We're going to see some wins, some losses. Quite a lot of the first few matches, I've been playing as the Malians. That's my favourite civ. I enjoy their flexibility. I like their wood bonus and the fact that up until Castle Age, it's up to you how you like to play the game. You can go archers, you can go infantry, and you can go stable units. So just to give you a bit of a background on my level, I've got a fair bit of game experience playing against the AIs for many years. However, as I said, I'm brand new to the multiplayer aspect. I sometimes very loosely follow some build orders, but I don't have hotkeys. However, I have been watching a lot of T90. I've been following his advice for Low-ELO legends, and as you can see here, I've started off with a lumber camp and avoided those straggler trees. Managed to find my sheep over here. And so far we've had not too much TC idle time for me. Something that you'll notice as we go further into these matches is as the game progresses, I do tend to idle my TC quite a lot, and it shows. Now, this is an important point in the match. So you can see I go to bring in my first boar, and the first ever ranked match, nerves are showing here, I lose the villager. And while that's happening, I'm so distressed, 2 sheep taken at once. It all goes wrong. So, I was feeling a little nervous. My first ever ranked game. I'd heard the very loud game found noise. Freaked me out a little bit. Never heard that before. And then here I am. This game had quite a lot of lag when I was playing it as well. Something to be aware of moving forwards. But I think, you know, I'll persevere. My opponent's Goths. I know that that's a civilization that doesn't get a particular eco bonus in the early ages. I didn't scout the enemy's base, but if I had, I would have felt a little bit more reassured. My opponent today decided to take all of his sheep at once and then progress swiftly onto straggler trees. Although did take the boar at the mill, which is an interesting choice. But no lumber camp as of yet. Of course, the Malians have the cheaper wood buildings, so after my lumber camp, I immediately start building some houses. Still a little bit of food left on that sheep. Idle TC time is starting to creep up. Now, at the higher level, I would certainly be very much punished for this start, but I figured it's my first match, I'm not ready to quit so far, let's persevere. And we'll see how that takes me. At this point, I'm not too sure what build I'm going to go for. I know that I'm up against Goths, and so their unique unit, the Huskal, is resistant to arrow fire due to its high pierce armor. And look at this. You can see once the nerves kick in with my terrible APM, that's where I start mass controlling the villagers here. Not something I usually do, but in this case, it all just sort of took over. Luckily, I avoid disaster. I didn't manage to take the sheep out here. Move the sheep back to a more sensible location, and villager idle time here. It hurts to see, it really does. But over on Rollo, he's being much more active with these villagers, but again, after taking the boar over here by the mill, needs to assign a new role to these villagers. I'm behind by 1 vill, having lost a vill. Resources wise, I'm a little bit behind on food, also on wood, although I have invested in some walling here. Oh, very close for this lady. She's going to make it. The nerves showing again there with the very far distance from the TC with the boar kill. But I surround it with villagers, so there's so many villagers on this one that the distance, the impact of this is slightly minimized because I'm going to chew through that very quickly before the decay can set in. Also as well, I've left this villager unattended, and we have here a half-finished house. Scouting wise, my scout is diligently observing this wood line over in the corner. As you can see, that's Rollo's viewpoint. Let's just... So Rollo has done some scouting. There's some manual scouting here. He scouted very well in this corner, and he's moved his scout over here, I think, to try and find me, although he has paused his scout. Let's change myself black back to blue. I'm still learning the capture age buttons here. Having sent all of my villagers to the boar, I'm now sending them all to this wood line. Very much low-elo practices here. This is something I do quite commonly, especially as Malians, where they have the cheaper buildings. I quite often go out to mill the deer. I find with terrible APMs such as myself that trying to push the deer often just leads to a lot of idle time. Now, I've mentioned that I don't use hotkeys. That's something I'll probably work on eventually. But for many years of my practice with Age of Empires 2, I was actually playing the PlayStation 2 version, which was pretty suboptimal. It had quite a low population limit. I think you could have a max something like 100 vils. The resolution was something to behold on the TV, and it made the PlayStation roar when you were playing it. However, ooh, not the best lumber count there. However, getting all that practice in with the controller means that even just playing with mouse and keyboard, I'm feeling more fluid than back in the day. Now, I like to have fun. Age of Empires, I mean, it is a game of APM, it's a game of efficiency, of having a good build order, of trying to reduce all your idle time, but also as well as a game of strategy. So I like to think that my years of experience help balance out my weaker aspects of the game to some degree at this level, although of course at the higher levels, and in some of my games where I lose, my inefficiency has punished me. So Rollo's sent his scout forwards. He sees mine. Mine's just on auto scout. I take the engagement. I know it's not going to end well, so I run back towards the TC. This is actually a bluff. There's no villagers at the TC. They are rushing back now. I've forced myself some idle time from this vicious one scout rush. And I've actually queued up some militia. I'm thinking he's got my scout. Let's see if I can get his. If I was sensible, I'd have turned around with that villager a lot quicker. And the scout lives to fight another day. So Rollo reached the feudal age a bit before me. He started on some house walls as well. He started some farming. He's got his feudal age eco upgrades in. He actually went straight for wheelbarrow. I've now hit the feudal age, and I'm queuing up double bit axe. And you'll probably see horse collar very shortly. I tend to rush my farming eco upgrades. I like to think that it helps with efficiency long term. Since I know that I won't be looking at my eco so much in the later game, I like to get things as efficient as possible from the earlier portion in the game so that I can leave it on autopilot as much as possible. So you see horse collar coming in there. And for most of my games, I don't build any farms until that one's in, although there is an exception in one of the next couple that I'm planning on recording. So far, it's your standard slow, low eco, dark age, feudal age. Not much has been going on. There hasn't been very much aggression. I'm aware that with the Goth player, they're going to be aiming for their late game of the infantry spam. So I start extending my walls, gathering some resources, and I've decided that at this point I'm almost certainly going to be going for cavalry. Just because easier to micro. I won't get caught out having to tech switch in the later game if Huskarls come out, and although spears are technically a counter, I find they're a weaker counter than some of the others. Now you see here the market. I think the market for lower elo players is actually something that's really, really underrated. I tend to use a market, not necessarily always straight market blacksmith, but I tend to have a market fairly early on in most of my games in order to help balance my economy. I'm less of a boomy player, so I like to rely quite heavily on the market. And I think that the time that it buys you by being able to grab that technology, grab that age, or produce your military units quicker is actually really worth it in the long term. So not much going on so far. We're just going through the motions. Rollo is almost ready to click up to Castle Age. He hasn't got his buildings yet though. You can see I'm already starting to use the market there. I'm thinking Castle Age. I've got my 2 buildings. I'm a bit behind in eco as I'm behind by 3 villages at this point. 3.5 minutes of TC idle time, which isn't fantastic there. Bit more idle eco time as well, particularly with chasing down that scout. But here we go, I've gone for Castle Age. I'm thinking I want to get to those knights. I want to start doing some damage. I've been very lucky that apart from that little scout incursion, haven't really had to deal with any military units. I've got my 2 militia standing ground here. I thought I could send them forward at some point, but they just ended up getting left there. So Rollo's played this much more open than I have. This is rune stones, so unlike Arabia, you do have a fair few wood lines. Wall from here to here, and here to here, and all the way round to secure yourself quite a large base. Resources-wise, nice safe stone at the back here, some safe wood lines for Rollo. Main gold is okay position, particularly if you had your wall here. However, these golds and the stones are quite far forward. From my side, something that really is beneficial is I have 2 gold and a stone at the back of my base. Nice and safe, and I've walled up the back. Haven't gone with the low elo strategy of the stone walls at the back. I actually placed them down fairly early. And then the plan is to build the production buildings here so that I can send out military to contest this area if needs be. Quite a good map. I think I have the better map here. So we're going to Castle Age. I'm starting to get eco upgrades for units that don't actually exist yet. And I'm going double stable, thinking of going straight into Knights play. Now, Rollo's going up to the Castle Age. You can see a group of militia is building up here. As the Goths, they have the cheaper infantry, and they're going to be looking towards an infantry play. Slightly forward barracks, just to help with the production there. And as Castle Age comes in, we can see Rollo is on stone with 3 vills, and he's coming towards the resources for a castle. The timing almost looks as if this is actually their own build order to have a castle ready at the start of Castle Age. However, they could have had a bit of a quicker time. They're floating quite a bit of wood here, quite a bit of gold. They could potentially have used their market, get themselves up a little bit quicker there. Or potentially invested that wood into more barracks, pumped out more of those infantry. Maybe some spearmen too. You'll notice something that both of the players, you know, my base was scouted earlier. I lost my scout. Rollo hasn't really scouted me very much. Neither of us really know what the other's doing. We've just been focusing on our eco. Had that first game jitters. I've just been trying to get my eco balanced again. As you can see here, fairly early, heavy plough. I'm thinking I want to have to look at my eco as little as possible later on. Starting to get some knights. I didn't want to show them straight away. Although it's going to be fairly obvious what's going to be sat in there at the Castle Age. I'm getting bloodlines. Thinking, get my upgrades in nice and early so that I can take good engagements. And here we go. Here's what we've been waiting for. The stone's in, the villagers come forwards. Interesting to see the stone shaft mining. That's very expensive. They might be thinking of another castle at this point. We've got man-at-arms here. Now, because of the scouting, he doesn't necessarily know how well walled I am, so actually his foundation clashes with where I've already built some houses. He's going to see that in just a moment. There we go. So I'm actually walled up. Thrown a spanner in the works. He doesn't know that there's other houses here. Hasn't scouted my palisade walls back here. And he's going straight for the houses. So this is the nightmare, right? It's your first ranked game. You haven't really got much military. You got 4 military. And you see the enemies here. Castle in the face. And longswords, which have just come in. So now I've got a decision to make. I see the castle from the knights there. I back off. I send my militia in to engage. I instantly rush up a tower. I'm thinking the TC will provide some protection. The tower will provide some more. They're going to be trying to break through here. Let's do as much as I can to slow this down. Now I have a decision to make, and I've been watching my T90. I recognise that this castle isn't really denying any resources. These infantry haven't gone into the kill. If they'd gone to the back of my base, there's a lot of exposed villagers back here. Could have been the end of the game. But Rollo, I think, was hoping for the frightened GG with the castle drop, and has been actually quite passive with this attack. So I send out a raid. Just 5 knights, not too much, but they do have their full attack upgrades. They've got bloodlines, they've got the first armor upgrade. I'm thinking if I find some villagers, I can do some damage. Now, unfortunately, I end up just passing these villagers. I didn't scout the area, so I didn't know that they were there. I brought a wolf along for the fight. But I do see the golds, and I dive straight in with the knights. So, one of the things that you need to do, a bit of game sense, I know I'm saying this from a low-elo player, but having played against the AI quite a lot, and watched a lot of videos, don't always panic the moment you see a castle. Because actually, he's using infantry, it's slow, it's immobile, he's not doing any damage to my eco. Meanwhile, I'm in here, and I'm getting the vills. I've already got a higher eco KD than Rollo. My early eco loss was from the boar, and these knights have done some real work here. 9 eco kills, invested into a tower. All the vills are idling in the TC. I'm sat under the TC, but actually with the bloodlines, with the first armor upgrade, I'm doing some damage. I'm not really looking there at the moment. Meanwhile, I produced some more knights at home, garrisoned my TC, cleared up the longswords. Hopefully I don't leave those garrisoned for too long now the threat is over. And this castle isn't actually doing anything. I mean, there's no fletching in, so I could potentially even be taking this gold if I wanted to. My wood line's over here. This will get ignored. It becomes incredibly inefficient. 2 knights have survived, and I've pulled them off to the corner having seen these spearmen. The wolf gives me a bit of an assist there, takes some HP off of that spearman, and they aim to finish the tower. So you can see in the aftermath of that, I now actually have the villager lead. I've been producing more. I've got idle TC time of almost 6 minutes, whereas Rollo is at 9.5. We've both gone for the 1 TC approach. I've seen at this point that I've been able to do damage, and now my thinking is I want to get rid of this castle from my face. I don't want to have Huskarls spamming into my eco later on. So the resources are starting to come in. You're going to see some market abuse. I'm thinking about getting up to the Imperial Age and trebbing this one down. There we go. We can see buying and selling at the market. I'm trying to get to Imperial Age as quick as possible. Rollo's invested in another TC over here. He's actually finished off this wood line. This provides a degree of safety to those villagers, although not as safe as the fact that I couldn't see them to begin with. I didn't know they were there. It says there are 5 stone villagers. I'm not sure. Oh yeah, that's being taken at the forward stone over here. Coming closer to that second castle. I've built my own defensive castle here. That's actually in range of the other castle, I believe. Oh no, it's not, because neither of us have fletching and it's not shooting. Oh, there it is. There we go. Yep, it is in range. It was a calculated decision. I figured it could force some sort of engagement. Now this was lazy. I could have put some house foundations down to protect these vills, but the knights were there. They were ready. Unfavourable engagement for the Huskarls. They're going for the vills. My knights are targeting the military, and they are taking some tower fire, although it's not doing very much against Huskarls. We have a petard here. However, there's one more coming. A lot more than just 1 or 2 is going to be needed to take down a castle, and it's quite a lot of resources that takes you further away from the Imperial Age. I didn't actually see that at the time, but my knight took care of the petards there. I've actually run, while that's all been going on, I ran back again into the eco with these two lower HP knights. I'm not even microing these, they're just taking down villagers. And again, KD eco-wise is now up to 18, so I've actually doubled my eco KD just with those two knights. So here we go, I'm up to the Imperial Age, on my way up, 3 minutes to go. With it, again, I mentioned the market. There's quite a lot of resources there. My opponent could be selling those, getting their way up to Imp. They've instead queued up some villagers. Only out of the 1 TC, these villagers are idle. And here we go, I'm thinking, let's do some more raids. I had noticed, although I hadn't been looking at everything that's been going on, I had noticed that those two knights had done a good job. And I figure I'm going to go back in there. So these villagers do a little bit of repairing. We can see he has enough stone for another castle. And unfortunately for Rollo, he's decided to put it in the same place. He's thinking double the archer fire, double the arrow fire onto my castle. Maybe stops those knights from running out from this direction, because he saw me run past his castle before. Here come the knights for the raid. I've gone back to the gold, thinking keep the opponent off of gold. So my tower was a bit of a deterrent in the early game against the infantry, but against these knights, not so much. And spears, there are no blacksmith upgrades in for the spearmen. These aren't pikemen. They are not really doing very much to contest these knights. We go back in, we get some more villagers. At this point I'm more than 10 villagers ahead, even though I've only been on 1 TC. I think if this castle had been placed more defensively, perhaps over here, could have provided some safer golden stone. Here, could have prevented a route of access for my knights. Got our villagers idling. I believe the town bell was actually rung in this instance. So, a good chunk of Rollo's eco is idle, and I'm in the Imperial Age. First thing I do is I click Trebuchet. I'm thinking I've got 2 castles on my face. Let's clear them out. Big morale hit from losing some castles. Of course, the defensive castle as well would have allowed better protection against trebuchets, because we bring the castle closer to the production, can bring units more quickly to support any siege push here. And I'm just in a bit of a loop here, not very efficient. Because I hadn't done any good scouting, I was still thinking that there's some infantry somewhere on the map that was going to come and get me. Although, looking at the score, I knew at this point I was holding quite a big advantage from those eco raids. Queuing up light cav here. I'm thinking about spreading out across the map and doing even more raiding. One of the Malians' really good techs is their unique tech, which is Farimba, which adds attack to all of your cavalry units. So although they do not get the Hussar upgrade, it does mean that you have pretty useful cavalry. I do still have one very low HP knight over there. Another TC coming up forward for the opponent. To be honest, I think in this scenario, I'm not sure what I would do if I was playing as the Goths. I think I would be trying to get to the Imperial Age, try and get those unique techs out. And perhaps trying to find a different entry point into my base. Cavaliers coming in here, I'm thinking I'm going to get my late game upgrades and I'm going to go for the final push. I've got my trebs, so I'm going to get rid of his castles and then roll forwards. Cavaliers in. So one thing that's always recommended if you look at the AOE 2 subreddit, if you watch some videos by the pros, is to go back and look at your replays to learn about how to improve your game. One thing I've certainly learned from these replays is I have had a lot of military not doing very much through a lot of this game. I've started some raids here, and actually the most impactful moves I've made through this game have been through sending my military out. So leaving it idling here, while it did give me some reassurance, is not adding value to the game, and this could certainly have been a much quicker game if I'd have rolled out and gone in for the kill. We have some spearmen again. Useful against these light cav to some degree with the numbers, as I'm only sort of streaming them in one by one. I've just set the gather point forwards. I just want to keep them distracted at home and away from pressing any kind of attack. And here we go with the Cavalier for much more concerted effort. My opponent's down to just 22 vills. They have a lot of resources. Part of their issue has been that they've had the res, but they haven't been producing military or villagers appropriately throughout this game. And of course, without blacksmith upgrades, these spearmen are not doing very much in the way of defense. He says as he loses a light cav to them. But here we go. If you look at the mini-map, we're just seeing blue streaming across the map. My trebs are coming for this TC. Now, pikeman is coming in. That will help. There is still scope with the amount of resources that my opponent is floating to relocate towards the back. Try and dig in defensively. Perhaps buy up another castle. But even that might be too little or too late at this point. Too many villagers are gone now. They have a lot of resources now, but there's nothing coming in. There's only one villager on gold, 3 on wood, and this game is coming to its natural conclusion. So an important point from this game, despite my poor APM, my loss of the villager at the start of the boar, my very inefficient Dark Age, at this level, at this elo, don't be disheartened, don't give up, play out the game and see what happens. Supplies coming in now, that could have come in much earlier in the feudal age, given the amount of infantry that was made at the start of the game, and the GG comes in. It's the end of the game. So yeah, sort of as I was saying, I think the real play of the game that turned around the momentum was seeing the castle on my face, was immediately sending out those knights for a raid. It crippled the economy. Goths do not have a very good economy. They're trying to get to the Imperial Age pretty much unscathed, and that didn't happen. And from the moment that they lost the Vill lead, you know, even at this point in the game, 45 minutes into the game, I only had 46 villagers. I'm on 1 TC, which at a higher level, I readily admit would be massively punished. But eco upgrades are in. I've occasionally refreshed my lumber camps. Double mining camp there, I do that sometimes to drop off resources. I've tried to keep things as efficient as possible. Actually, no, supplies was coming in from me, actually. That's my mistake, not the opponent. I think I was looking to tech switch to deal with those spearmen. And there we have it. So you can see here we have the timeline. You can see where the long swords were lost, and Red didn't really at any point recover the military. This game certainly from this point could have probably been wrapped up a bit quicker. I was a bit preoccupied with those castles and getting to the Imperial Age, at which point I started to ramp up the production, and we can see that here. Low-ELO armies, army high of 27 for myself as the Malians, 18 for Rollo as the Goths. Economy-wise, I collected some relics at some point within that, and collected more of food, gold, and stone. So you can see the impact that having those Vill raids and the eco upgrades had. And the moral of the story with this, we don't have APM, is at this level, you're just looking to have some fun. Don't necessarily worry at the start of the game. If you lose that villager to the boar, if things go a bit wonky, just play the game. You can always try and recover things with an interesting move, and I think going to raid the opponent sealed the deal in this particular match. Thank you very much for watching. This was my first ever ranked game. You're going to see some interesting games in my follow-ups. As I said, I've played about 10 multiplayer games at this point, but I've already had some quite interesting incidents so far, so I'm looking forward to sharing that with you. And thank you very much. Feel free to comment, like, and subscribe. Just be aware, I do know of my low-ELO traits, so while you might feel free to point them out, I'm already well aware that there is room for improvement in my game. However, it's all part of the fun. And this game's about having fun, and I enjoyed myself in this game. It was a very fun introduction to the world of ranked AOE 2 multiplayer. Until next time.